welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a beautiful and delicious classic recipe for you, although we're going to be taking some liberties with it. We're doing a risotto, and we're doing it with scallops and snow peas. It's a really excellent, delicious, extremely hearty recipe. It does take some time. Risotto does take quite a lot of cooking, so here's our ingredients. We have these beautiful bay scallops. We're going to be using a little bit of Parmesan cheese, some chives, and some leek. This is very heavy on the vegetables. Some shallot, some carrot, these beautiful snow peas. We're also going to be using some of these beautiful chanterelle mushrooms. Some arborio rice is the classic. Some chicken stock. We're using some fat, so we're going to be using some butter, a little bit of olive oil, and just a bit of vermouth. Actually, a bit more vermouth than you might expect, but we're going to split it across three different methods of use, so it won't seem like quite so much. So we are going to start by getting our chicken stock up to temperature. We don't want to add cold stock to our risotto. It'll stop it from cooking as soon as you add it. So we're going to get that up to temperature. We're just going to get it warm, not boiling. And we wanted to have a little bit of fun with the carrots, so we're going to cut these. We have a channel knife here. This is great for getting twists for drinks, but we're just going to cut some channels out of the carrot to try and make one of those little carrot flowers that you see. We didn't do a great job. It might have probably been easier with the knife. We're going to take what was in the channels, and we're just going to chop that up really finely. And we're going to add that to the vegetable mix that we're going to toast the rice in. Next thing is the leeks, and again, we're just going to cut these pretty fine. We want most of this to sort of disappear into the risotto and cook down into it. So we're going to slice those into strips and then cut it into pretty fine pieces. You can see there. And these are just going to basically make the flavor base for our risotto. So next thing we're going to do is chop our shallot. If you want, you can use garlic for this as well. We wanted to use these beautiful local shallots we had. And you can cut those pretty fine as well. And this is going to make the beautiful sort of flavor base for our risotto. So the next thing we're going to do is slice our little carrot flowers. You want them to be pretty thick. You want them to stay together as they cook. We're also going to cut some of these bigger snow peas in half. They're a little big, so we're going to cut them in half so that they're all kind of bite-sized. We don't want huge pieces of snow pea in the risotto. You just want everything roughly the same size. So next thing we're going to do is get our pan ready. We want to get those vegetables in the pan and to get them to start cooking a little bit. Meanwhile, we're going to put the snow peas and the carrots into the warm broth to sort of gently par-cook them before we add them to the risotto. This helps them be a little bit more cooked so they're not A, cold, and B, raw at the end of all of this cooking. So in goes our medley of veggies. So this is our leek, our carrot that we chopped up, and the shallot. You want to make sure you get that all into the pan. And here's where the olive oil and butter comes in. We want to make sure that everything gets nice and wilted in there. A little bit of salt. And you want to make sure that everything's well combined. So we're just going to give that a good stir. Spread that butter around, and we're going to let these cook down for a little while until they get nice and translucent. Meanwhile, you can do some of your other prep. We're going to cut up our chives. So we have these beautiful fresh chives from the garden. And we're just going to cut these into some pretty fine little pieces. Part of this is going to go into the risotto, and part of it is going to be garnish at the end. So make sure once you've cut these, you set them aside. They're going to be used at the end. These beautiful chanterelle mushrooms, we're going to chop these up a little bit into these nice long slices. We don't want to make these too small. We want to sort of maintain some of the shape of them and that beautiful texture of them. They're really gorgeous, so we want to make sure that we just sort of keep those in the right shape. So here you go. We've added a little tiny bit of stock. Some of the veggies have browned a little on the bottom. So we're just going to deglaze that pan a little bit with a little bit of that hot stock. And then we're going to add in our rice. And we want to toast the rice until it gets a little bit translucent. So we're going to mix that in, make sure it's all covered with the oil and it mixes in well with the vegetables. And we're just going to let that toast for a little while until it gets translucent and you get that nice sort of toasty, nutty smell from the rice. And then it's time to start adding stock. So once you see this, the individual grains of rice are starting to get a little translucent, it's time to start adding your stock a little bit at a time. So this is, again, this nice hot stock. You don't want this to be room temperature or cold. You want it to be at a very, very low simmer. And we're just going to keep adding it for this first addition until it starts to sort of pile up, until we sort of get some pooling at the bottom. And there you can see there that it has gotten a little soupy, so that's perfect. So we're just going to stir those first few ladles of stock in until it completely mixes in with the rice and reduces completely. It doesn't take very long for those first ones because that rice is dry. It's thirsty. It wants to soak up some of that liquid. So we're just going to keep adding it until it starts to sort of stand at the bottom. You can see there's some standing liquid. It comes out right away. That means it's time to just stir it in and let it go. Once there's no more standing liquid, it's time to add 1 or 2 more ladles of the hot stock. And this, you want to keep doing this 1 or 2 ladles at a time until all of your stock is gone. It does take some time, and you do want to stir it really frequently during this period. But that's sort of what makes this dish creamy. All of that stirring brings some of the starches out and makes that beautiful creamy texture of a classic risotto. We're also going to toast up, get a little color on the mushrooms, so those are going to go into a pan with some butter. And then back to our risotto. You want to just keep an eye on everything. Now we've used all of our stock in there. The last little bit went in. You can see there's some standing liquid, so we're just going to add in our vegetables. So this is our snow peas and those nice little carrot flowers. They're still quite crisp. They're not overcooked. They've just been very lightly parboiled in the stock. And they were actually nice and crisp all the way through to the end. Now we're going to add a little bit of the vermouth to this, but we want to reserve a little because we have 2 pans that we're going to be deglazing. So the first thing is, obviously this is the mushroom pan. And you see some beautiful color on those mushrooms. And we're just going to deglaze that pan with a little bit of that vermouth. Get any little crispy bits of mushroom off the bottom of the pan and into the risotto. And then just stir those in. You want to get those nicely incorporated into your dish. And then we're going to sear off our scallops. So we have these beautiful bay scallops. They're quite small, but we don't want to throw them in raw and cold. We want to give them a little par cook before they go in so that they finish cooking in the risotto. And we're going to add a little salt and pepper on those in our beautiful carbon steel pan. And we're just going to get these until they're rare in the middle. We want to flip them over. If they get a little color, that's excellent. These were quite wet. A lot of liquid came out of them, so they didn't really get a lot of color, although they did leave some nice crispy bits on the bottom of the pan, which was excellent. And we'll deglaze this one with that last little bit of vermouth as well. So once they are par cooked and still pretty rare, we're going to toss those into the risotto. And you can see here, the last little bit goes in. And we're going to deglaze that with the last little bit of vermouth as well as a little bit of butter. And then that's going to go straight into our risotto. And at this point, you can turn the heat off on your risotto and it's done. It's pretty much ready. We're going to let that butter melt. We're going to get that last little bit of vermouth to incorporate. It doesn't take very long. And you can see it's this beautiful, rich, creamy, and incredibly rich dish at this point. We've got those scallops and the snow peas in there. We're going to top that off with a little bit of that grated Parmesan cheese. And of course, now is a great time to taste and make sure that all the flavor profiles are exactly where you want them. Make any adjustments that you want. And in go the most of the chives. And remember, reserve a few of those chives so that you can garnish with them at the end. And remember, this has been off the heat for some time now. The temperature is, the heat has not been cooking it actively anymore. Any more cooking that's happening is just through carryover. And then we're ready to serve. So again, this is a very rich dish. You want to make sure everyone gets some of those snow peas. You want to make sure that there's some of those beautiful scallops included in everyone's dish. And this is a very vegetable heavy dish. And there go the last of the chives. Just going to toss them on top there. Nice little garnish, a little fresh green on top. And that's it. That's the whole thing. This is a delicious dish. It does take some time. It does take a little bit of work. You do need to sort of babysit a little. You need to stir it a lot as it's cooking. But definitely worth it. We hope you'll give it a try. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. If you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.